Hello, my name is Gene Monterastelli, and I am the editor of TappingQA.com. And the video that you are about to watch is an interview that I did as part of the 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping was a free event, which was a fundraiser for the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network provides training and trauma relief tools to those in war-torn countries, as well as working with refugees all over the world. They've been able to help out over 200,000 people all over the world. After you watch this video, if you find this video something that was useful, the very easy way that you can say thank you to the guest for giving their time and sharing their expertise is to go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support and make a small contribution to support the Peaceful Heart Network. Again, that is 24hoursoftapping.com/support, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Up next is my friend Julie Schiffman. Not only has Julie been doing an amazing job trying to get lots of people here to share with all of this, she's one of my absolute favorite practitioners in the world. Julie holds a master's degree in social work, is an internationally recognized EFT practitioner. For more than 30 years, Julie has counseled thousands of clients, helped them break through physical and emotional barriers, and her life-changing YouTubes have been viewed by more than 5 million people worldwide. I would like to please welcome to the stream my friend Julie. In just a minute, our tech guys will catch up and get us in the right spot. Excellent. We'll remove that. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm having a really, really good time. I can't
Oh
think
my
of a better
God,
way.
I'm so excited for this. Yes, I just saw the end of the other interview you did, and I mean, it's just such a beautiful thing you're doing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing, and to be able to be a part of it and to share and hopefully help to raise money for this really, really, really important cause. I'm just super excited to be here. So thank you.
Awesomeness. So, question that I'm going to be starting with a lot as we talk about these different topics, we navigate our way through the day, is I love hearing people's origin stories about the topic, not necessarily in tapping, but I know you do a huge amount of work with chronic and acute pain. What was the initial impetus for you to be interested in going after something like that?
So without going into too much of the backstory of how I got connected, I was working with Dr. Joe Mercola. I don't know, we're going back over 20 years now, 20, 25, whatever it was. And I have a master's degree in social work. And so I was helping people in a different capacity. I was suffering from horrible panic attacks and got involved with more holistic treatments and that sort of thing. And then I was connected with Dr. Mercola, who had, at the time, I think he still does, the largest natural healthcare website in the world. And he was like, I need you to learn this thing called tapping EFT, emotional freedom technique, because I really think it could help people here in my clinic with pain and that sort of thing. He's like, I can tell people what supplements to take and, to exercise and to drink their water, which many people know, but nobody really understands how to connect with the underlying emotional component of what's happening. So he sent me out to go learn tapping with Gary Craig and a lot of other different tappers who were just starting out. This was in the late 90s. And started using it I started working at that clinic, and I started using it with patients who were coming in. They all had to come through and see someone like me to do tapping with them to address the underlying emotional components. And I was like, this is like the craziest thing I've ever even heard of. Like, I'm going to tell people they need to tap on themselves, and that's going to like make their pain disappear. Like, what? Right. That's crazy. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to try it. I'm a little embarrassed by it, but I'm going to try it. And, started using it with the patients who were coming through, and the results one after another were like, this is just freaking unbelievable. People who had been suffering with pain and discomfort and disease and all different things, trauma, all different things we were working with, all different types of people with all different types of challenges. And we just kept seeing over and over and over again that people are like getting better by addressing the underlying emotional component. And I mean, I can tell you hundreds of stories of people who came in who were like, I have tried absolutely everything and anything to get rid of this pain, whether it happened yesterday or 20 years ago. And we were just seeing over and over again that, wow, This is unbelievable. Like, I feel so much better. I can't even believe it.
And so with that being said, then how do we then approach acute and chronic pain from an emotional disposition? Because I know, like, we are one of the things that we're very good at least those of us who grew up in the Western world, we're very good about talking about what is going on physically. Because most of us at some point as a young time, it's like, tell the doctor, tell the nurse where it hurts. So like we're given the opportunity to develop emotional vocabulary to talk about what is going on inside of us physically. We don't necessarily have the not all of us have an emotional intelligence and emotional vocabulary. And two, when we're dealing with something physical, we're like, oftentimes it's easy for us to be so focused on the pain that we are stuck in. So how do we step out of that? How do we think about that in a different way? So what is your approach? How do we do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because you're right. We get stuck in the pain, right? Pain hurts. Like, it is physically painful when we're experiencing pain. So whether you got some neck pain, some back pain, stomach aches, whatever it is, you're connected to just that. You're like, oh, it hurts, and as people, we tend to want to connect about our pain. So then we talk about it, right? We talk about the pain. I've got this terrible neck ache. I've got this bad backache. It's been here for, all of those things. Or if someone, they tripped and fell and they hurt themselves, then they're going to talk about that, right? So they get sort of caught up in the emotions of it, or in the physical piece of it, because it hurts. And what we know from doing this work, and I think pretty much people know by now that stress is a leading cause of, pain that we experience, right? So that's nothing really new. But what we really want to look at is what's going on emotionally, which is connected to the pain. So, here's an example. I had a client this week who she's never done tapping before. It was the first time she had seen me. She was recommended to see me because she was having a lot of emotional stuff going on. But about 8 months ago, she was kicked in the knee by her horse, and really painful. And she had gone to, to all her helpers, right? She got acupuncture and she went to chiropractic and she did all these things, massage, and she was getting really a lot better. She was like at 80%, she said. She was doing so much better. And then she's having a lot of issues and stress with her husband. She's been married for 2 years. Hasn't been off to a great start, a lot of challenges there. And she was out with her husband, and he has a dog. And she said, will you please put him on a leash because, this dog jumps and whatever, please put him on a leash. And he said, no, the dog will be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine, fine, fine. And he doesn't put the dog on the leash. And sure enough, the dog jumps up on her and re-injures her knee big time. So she goes back to like zero, right? She goes back to where she was. She had made all this progress in like 8 months. Can't even believe it. She's so upset. She's so angry. She's feeling betrayed. She's feeling, she's just resentful. She's so upset about it. So she's like, I don't know what this tapping is, but someone told me I should do it because I'm just so upset. I can't get past it. And I said, all right, well, you come to the right place. So let's just tap on it. Let's just tap on everything that's coming up for you. Let's tap on, the pain, of course. But we're going to look at some of the emotions here. So tell me when that happened, when the dog jumped on you. Now, remember, the initial pain was the horse, the horse kicking her, right? But it was re-injured, 8 months later when she was 80% better. And so by tap, we didn't even get to the horse kick. We were just tapping on all the emotions around the upset of her husband not listening to her, and the dog jumping up on her, and the resentment, and then, some stress in her marriage and that sort of thing. And she was like, I can't believe how relaxed I feel. First of all, she's like, I have been so worked up for so long. And then she sent me an email the next morning saying, Julie, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this, right? You're not going to believe this. But she's like, I went out for the first time last night with my husband and with some friends. I haven't gone out in 8 months. I haven't gone out in a social situation to a restaurant because I was so nervous about it. And it's hard for me to walk. She's like, I'm not there yet. She's like, but the pain has come down so much, so considerably that I feel so much more hope now that I know that I can resolve this. I can move towards this. And not only did she feel better in her knee, but she was also feeling some new connection with her husband and some forgiveness and things around that. So I always call that a win-win, right? Because she's not only healing on the part that is physical, but she is also healing on the part that is emotional and mental and connectiveness with other people, which is what we really want. So that's a great example of how we have to address both sides of it. It's not just one or the other. It is always both. It is the mind-body experience. It is the mind-body connection.
And one of the things I think that is really that I like to highlight in what you just shared there is this. I love tapping on the emotion about the issue before I tap on the issue itself. And I actually learned this lesson when I was working with someone who had injured her ankle, and she was jogging on the grass instead of jogging on the sidewalk. And because of that, there was a hole. She stepped in it. She twisted her ankle. And so we started tapping on him. And so what's going on? She's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm so stupid. I knew better. And so there was a part of her that was beating herself up and almost felt like, this is the karma because I did this stupid thing. I should be in this pain. And so, and the reason why we got there was, this was very, very early on in my tapping career. And we were just tapping for the emotional. We were tapping for the physical thing. We were tapping for the physical thing. And we weren't getting any traction. And so then we just tapped on, boy, I feel really stupid because I know better. And just by doing that, created some space where the pain went down, but it also gave us this entryway to go in. And so I love the fact that you're identifying the emotional experience. Like in the case you're saying, like, not only is she hurt, she's also really ticked off at her husband who was not listening to her, and created this moment for her to be re-injured. And so starting with that emotional component, so valuable in doing that sort of work.
It's so funny that you mentioned that story. I'm just going to tell you briefly what happened to me like a week ago. So I surprisingly was making dinner for my family. Everybody happened to be home. And so I was making dinner, and I was putting an avocado in a salad. And, you always hear, don't take the pit out with a sharp knife, right? Don't take the pit out with a sharp knife. Right. Okay. So of course I have a sharp knife, and I'm like, oh, this will be okay. But I thought to myself, that rule, right? Never take the pit out with a sharp knife. But I did it. And so of course, as I did it, the knife slips, it goes right into my hand. And of course, like the initial shock is like, oh my God, right? It's like bleeding, it's gushing. I mean, at the time I thought I went right through, which I didn't. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But in the moment, it was like, it was shocking, and it was torturous, and it was painful and bleeding and all of that. And the first thing I did was I ran my hand under the water. And then the second thing I did was I started tapping, because all those thoughts of, I'm so stupid, I should have known better, I knew not to put it in, I even thought about it, and I did it anyway. So I'm going through this tapping, and my family's in the kitchen with me. And they're like, Mom, because I had my hand under the sink, and I'm like, ow, 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 but I'm also tapping, and they're like, Mom, just pay attention to what you're doing. Focus on what you're doing, and the important thing, your hand. And I'm like, no, let this be a lesson. I am focusing on the important thing by addressing this right now, because I knew in that moment. Now, we can't always address things right in the moment. It's not always possible. I happen to be in a position where I could. But I knew more than anything that tapping on it in that moment, that my hand was going to heal probably 80% faster if I were to tap on the emotions and what was going on right here. And sure enough, I mean, within a couple of days, it's like healed up. And it was, again, it wasn't so bad, but it was enough that it was punctured, but and my kids are like, no, focus on your hand. And I'm like, we were going to focus. I'm focusing on my emotions right now, because this is going to move it along that much faster. And it does. So that's a great example that you just gave, because I think so much of the time when we are injured, when we are hurt in some way, very often we blame ourselves. And whether it's, I'm so stupid, I should have done this differently, what was I thinking? Or people who are suffering with more systemic stuff, a lot of times people are hard on themselves around feeling guilty about the way they've treated their body, the foods that they've eaten, lack of exercise, too much exercise, choices that they've made. And so people very often internalize, deny and disconnect from, but internalize so many of those emotions and don't realize that that is what is fueling the pain that they're experiencing.
And so then I am someone who has pain, chronic, something that is showing up. How do we start? Like if you're instructing someone who goes, okay, I know the basics of tapping, and I can resonate with this idea that, yes, it's not just this physical thing, but that it's this emotional thing as well. What's the entry point? Like how do we practically do that?
Absolutely. So one of the things I love about what I do and what we do is that we get to be detectives, right? I mean, we get to ask questions. We get to ask questions. And that is what is so important here, is that we need to ask the questions around what's happening. So there's two parts to this, right? There are the questions that we want to look at physically, and then there are the questions we want to look at emotionally. So the physical part, we want to just look at the obvious, which is, where's the pain, right? That's pretty easy, right? Is it on the left side, the right side? Is it sharp? Is it stabbing? Is it throbbing? Is it, whatever that feels like for you? Everyone has like their own way of identifying what this feels like. And we personally are the experts, not me, not you, but the person who is suffering from the pain is the absolute expert on how it feels, right? So we also want to know how much space it takes up. I mean, is it little? Is it like the size of a pea or a quarter? Is it the size of a watermelon? How big is this space? How big does this feel in your body? And then we want to look at we want to get a baseline. So we want what's the intensity of it? And the reason why we do the intensity, as you know, is that we want to get a baseline, right? So we want to know where we're starting from, because pretty sure that I can almost guarantee, not 100%, but probably 95% guarantee that once you tap, you will feel differently. So, it's going to come down.
And not only is it going to come down, it also, like, the release of things is really hard to measure over any period of time. I think about like wearing really, really tight shoes, and I take off those really, really tight shoes and I can feel them for about 2 minutes, even though the shoes aren't there. And then after 2 minutes, when my feet relax, I can't even really remember what it was like having that sort of intensity. And so by grabbing a SUDS level, in this particular case, subjective unit of distress, of seeing how intense it is, it gives us the ability to see that we're actually making progress, because sometimes if something evaporates. I actually was working with a client one time where we were 5 or 6 sessions in, and he's like, Gene, I'm really enjoying our time together, but I don't know if we're actually getting anywhere. And I'm like, awesome. Let's look at your intake form. Let's go through this. And the transformation was so unbelievable to him. He goes, oh, I was just exaggerating. I was just making it up. Like he couldn't remember.
Yes.
And so I think it's valuable for us, not just when we're teaching others to demonstrate it, but to teach ourselves that it's actually working. Because if it just goes away, I'm like, oh, I guess it wasn't really that big of a deal. And we're forgetting the fact that we did something tangible to get to that particular place. So grabbing that intensity level, I think not only is useful in the moment to see if we're making progress, but I find it as a reassuring element so that I will come back to the tool again.
Totally. And that's such a great way to put it. I love that analogy with like when you take, your shoe hurts, you take it off, right? It is. It's such a great way to put it. So we're starting
so we're starting the basics. We're like seeing the shape of it. We're seeing what it feels like. We're giving it an intensity. Then what were we doing?
Correct. And then what you're doing is you want to look at the emotional underlying component, right? So this part is a little bit trickier because we don't always know. And it really depends on the circumstance and what's going on. But you want to connect to the pain, and you want to identify, is there an emotion with that? Like, is there some sort of emotion that you connect to when you connect to the pain? So that emotion could be frustration because you're in pain. And for some people, it could be, it could be anger. It could be, whatever it is, whatever the emotion could be from whatever started it to begin with. Right.
So if you were working with me as a client, how would you phrase that particular question, or how do I ask that question? Because intellectually I go, what is the emotion that is there? Like, as a detective, is it like, what emotion am I feeling right now? Is it really that simple of a question? Like, how do we find that emotion?
Yeah. So I would have you connect to the pain because you feel it wherever it is. Yep. And I would say when you connect with that pain, when you really connect with it, when you feel it, what emotion do you feel? What emotion do you feel when you are connecting with that pain right now? And almost always, not always, but almost always, people can identify an emotion. At least it's a place to start.
And so as you asked that, so I have a little bit of a headache this morning. And as you were saying that, and I tuned into it, and I asked that question, and my body went, I thought, I can't believe my body is letting me down on such an important 24 hours. This is the wrong time to be having any sort of headache or heading towards a migraine. And so the emotion was, seriously, body, today, that's what you're going to give me?
Exactly. So That we are going to tap today, by the way. So hopefully
Good.
that'll help. And we will focus on that because you need to be up and ready to go today. I mean, we need you here. We need you here. You got a lot of people to talk to, but a lot of tapping, so that'll be good.
Yep.
So we're connecting with that pain, and I'm glad that you just said, like, seriously, body, you're going to do this to me today, because the next thing I was going to say to you, and you did it before I got there, which is, what is the voice of the pain? So let's say because you didn't really say an emotion, I think, first off, you just said, like, seriously, right? So you just automatically went to the voice. But let's say maybe you're frustrated, right? Maybe that's feeling frustrated for you, right? And so you would connect with that frustration. And then I would ask you to say, okay, what is the voice of frustration? So connect with the frustration. And what is that frustration saying to you? And then you said it ahead of time. But for anybody who doesn't do that, then you could go ahead and say, okay, I want you to listen to the frustration. What's that frustration saying to you? And then, someone will say, like, seriously, body, you're going to do this to me today of all days, that sort of thing. And then we connect with that. So where do you feel that in your body? Seriously, body, you're going to do this to me today. And sometimes it shifts and it moves someplace else. So did you notice something?
So as you say that, it's like, so I have the pain here, and it's like, where do I feel that? Seriously? Like, there's a part of me that just wants to go, oh, and just like flop over and like, come on, really? And so like the frustration is more in my body, just like, where the pain is living up here. And so it's interesting that, like, they're showing up in two really distinct places as I think about it in that way.
Exactly. So then I would say, well, what's the intensity on that? Seriously, now you feel it sort of all over. You want to just like fall over,
Yeah.
And so then we say, well, what's the intensity on that?
Mm-hmm. And so as I tune into that, like it's, for me, it's not super high. It's like a little frustration because, between the dark chocolate peanut butter cups and the coffee, I'm going to make it like that's not going to be an issue. Like we're going to stay to the inside of that, but still it's just like, so there's a little frustration, not a lot of frustration. Now, if we were in a circumstance, knock on wood, my internet connection went out right now, that would be a really different type of frustration, because this I can manage, that I can't manage because of the setting that we're in today. So like a 3-ish of the frustration.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we kind of go through this process of, okay, so you got the frustration. Now you feel it, and like you feel it in your body. Okay, so now what is the emotion that you feel from that? Or now what emotion is that saying to you? So we kind of go through this little, we might go through 6 or 8 different emotions where it really just started with a little bit of a pain in the head. But then it turned into, well, I'm remembering when this, this or this happened. And then it's, somewhat of another trigger or whatever. And then we go through and, and we start doing the tapping, the other questions. But that's a really good way to get to where we want to go, and something that we can actually do on our own. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of tapping, so much of what we love about it is that it's something that we can do on our own. But of course, many times we need help, which is, why people reach out to us. But which is the reason why I reach out
to a practitioner. Like it's not that just people reach out to us. We should be reaching out as well.
For sure. As I do too. Absolutely. I've got my helpers and healers. You've got yours. We all need our team of people. We can't do everything on our own. But, sometimes for a little bit of a headache, if you actually had time to walk into another room, you might be able to just tap it out and you'll be totally fine. So the other things you want to look at is if it's something that you have been dealing with for a longer period of time, when did it start? What was going on at the time? What emotions, come up for you around that, which is sort of what I went through. This woman, with the horse kick to the knee. I had another client this past week also who's been dealing with some really bad stomach pains. And since her second child was born, and I think her second child is 8 or 10, something like that, young, but enough that it's been there for a number of years. And so in asking, she is like, this woman is buff. I mean, she is like fit. She has like 0 fat on her. She is like, she eats impeccably. She is the picture of health, except she has these stomach pains. And so by asking some of these questions, she's like, I've been to everybody. I've done everything. I've changed my diet. I've cut things out. I've done absolutely everything. And, okay, well, tell me, what does it feel like for you? And she's like, well, it feels like, it's like this big, like it's just expansive. And, you know, it just is, it's just big. It's just big. It takes up my stomach. I feel bloated, you know, that sort of thing. And asking the intensity, and one of the emotions that I asked her about emotions, and one that came up was regret. About a bunch of different things, decisions she's made, choices she's made, whatever. And so we did all this tapping about regret and things that she's done in her life, choices she's made, that sort of thing. Tap, 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 and spent almost the whole session tapping. And by the end, she was like, you know, it started like this, you know, it started like this big in her stomach. And she's like, and now it just feels like a little point. Like there's just like a little, like a point just sort of sticking me. So, and at that point we had to end, and I will see her again, but you can see, she's like, it doesn't usually come down to that. It's usually always something that is distended or expansive and not down to one little point. And so, which I always just find fascinating, right? And so, you know, at least we brought it down to a place that was much more manageable, because it was like an 8 or a 9. It came down to like a 3, which is still like a 60% difference. And we'll continue to work with that. But just within a period of an hour, she was able to reduce it so much by addressing things that happened 8 or 12 years ago, or, you know, whatever it was. And so that's why it's important to ask these questions, because otherwise you're just starting with, well, I got this pain and I don't know. I mean, I've tried everything and I don't really know what it is, but your body, you know, there's even a book, Your Body Keeps the Score. I think that's the name of it, right? And I'm not remembering the author's name. I apologize. You might know who it is, but anyway, it's a really popular and famous book. And your body keeps the score, because even though you've got this brain up here that does all the thinking and, you know, is really important, your body is just absorbing all the things you experience. So the things that you see, the things that you hear, the things you experience, your conversations, you know, it holds on to stuff. And if you are not able to process what is going on emotionally, whatever it is, you know, whether it's that you woke up with a neck pain and you've got some emotions about it, or you got a headache and you're like, seriously, body, or whether it's something really big, your body is paying attention to that. And if you can't process it, your body will start to process it for you. And so that shows up as neck pain, a headache, a backache, you know, all of that. So I'm sitting here, I probably look like I'm thinking of something else, because I happen to live in Highland Park, which is where those shootings took place on the 4th of July. And terrible. And my family and we were not there, but we certainly know people who were. And I keep thinking about, you know, I'm trying to help out where I can and whatnot. And what I keep thinking about is like, how is this? And of course, it's trauma. That's a big T trauma, right? That is a big T trauma. And not everybody experiences those big T traumas. There's small T traumas that also can cause pain. But we want to, I keep thinking, like, how is this going to affect people down the line? You know, and I want to be able to obviously get this information out to so many people who can really benefit, not just because for the emotional trauma of it, but also the underlying physical trauma of it.
Yeah. And so, you know, we've been talking about this. Someone wants to do a little tapping on that. So why don't we do exactly that? We've talked about kind of the approach to this stuff. So let's do some tapping. What's the best way for us to jump in and do some tapping right now?
Awesome. So the best way is to take a big deep breath in. And let it
and so
go.
as we do this, I'm going to model it from my head, but all of you tapping along as she's asking questions, pay attention to what's going on internally for you. You might jot down some notes to make it easier for you to do that. But I'm going to invite everybody, because I'm guessing somewhere in your body, you got an ache or a pain or something in there. So do some tapping with us. So deep breath.
Yep. And just really quickly identify where the pain is, identify the intensity of it, what it feels like for you, just so that you know where you're starting from.
Yep.
And
so it's size of a potato right here, and it's about a 5.
Okay, let's address it. Let's tap on the side of your hand. Even though my body is speaking to me with pain in my...
Even though my body is speaking to me with pain in my forehead.
Mm-hmm. I love, honor, and accept myself.
I love, honor, and accept myself.
And my body.
And my body.
Mm-hmm. Even though I may have suddenly woke up with this pain.
Even though I may have suddenly woken up with this pain.
Or maybe I've been feeling it for years.
Or maybe I've been feeling it for years.
I accept myself.
I accept myself.
And I'm open to relaxing and releasing it now.
And I'm open to relaxing and releasing right now.
Even though my body is expressing itself in ways which I can't.
Even though my body is expressing itself in the ways that I can't.
And some days it's really screaming at me.
And some days it's really screaming at me.
I'm open to discovering the root cause.
I'm open to discovering the root cause
of this pain.
Of this pain.
And I am open to healing it now.
And I'm open to healing it now.
And we're going to tap through the points. I start on the top of the head.
Yep.
This pain in my
forehead.
And move to the eyebrow. This pain is painful.
This pain is painful.
And the side of your eye. It may be here all the time.
It may be here all the time.
And under your eye. Or perhaps it hurts when I move a certain way.
Or perhaps it hurts when I move a certain way.
And under your nose. All I know is it really hurts.
All I know is it really hurts.
And tap on your chin. This pain in my
forehead.
Mm-hmm. And the collarbone point. And I'm feeling really frustrated.
I'm really frustrated with this pain.
And under your arm, because it gets in the way of feeling good.
Because it gets in the way of feeling good.
And on the top of your head. And I got things to do today.
And I have so much to do today.
And over your eyebrow. And I really need to show up today.
And I really need to show up today.
And the side of your eye. And I don't know how to make it better.
And I don't know how to make it better.
And under your eye. And maybe I've tried everything.
Maybe I've tried everything.
And under your nose. Or maybe I'm just hoping it'll magically go away.
And maybe I'm just hoping it will magically go away.
And on your chin without doing anything at all.
Without doing anything at all.
And the collarbone. This stabbing or throbbing pain.
This stabbing or throbbing pain.
And tap under the arm. This shooting pain.
This shooting pain.
And again on the top of your head. Maybe this cramped feeling.
Maybe this cramped feeling.
And over your eyebrow. What is my body trying to tell me?
What is my body actually trying to tell me?
And the side of your eye. This pain certainly has my attention now.
This pain certainly has my attention now.
And under your eye. And I'm listening.
And I'm listening.
And under your nose. I'm finally listening.
I'm finally listening.
And on your chin. I'm paying attention to all the emotions I didn't have time to before.
And I'm paying attention to all the emotions that I didn't have time to pay to before.
Mm-hmm. And the collarbone, which are now being expressed by my body.
Which are now being expressed by my body.
And under your arm, all the frustration or anger.
All the frustration or anger.
And the top of your head, the shame or the guilt.
The shame or the guilt.
And over your eyebrow, all the fear.
All the fear.
And the side of your eye. I'm open to the possibility of feeling better now.
I'm open to the possibility of feeling better now.
And under your eye, healing my body.
Healing my body.
And under your nose. And tapping feels so good.
And this tapping feels so good.
And on your chin as I move the stress from my body.
As I remove the stress from my body.
And the collarbone. I remove the past from my body.
I remove the past from my body.
And under your arm. And then my body can begin to heal.
And my body can begin to heal.
And again on the top of your head, allowing healing energy to move through my body.
Allowing healing energy to move through my body.
And over your eyebrow, trusting that my body knows how to let go.
Trusting my body knows how to let go.
Because it does.
Because it does.
On the side of your eye, I would never choose this pain.
I would never choose this pain.
And under your eye, and yet it is very present in my body.
Yet it's very present in my body.
And under your nose, and since I didn't choose it and I don't want it.
And since I didn't choose it and I don't want it.
And on your chin, it's here for a reason.
It's here for a reason.
And the collarbone, my body is not attacking me.
My body is not attacking me.
And under your arm, it's not.
It's just not.
It's protecting me.
It's protecting me.
And over your eyebrow, and it's helping me to process.
It's helping me to process.
and the side of your eye, and gain access to the parts of me that are looking to express itself.
And gain access to the parts of me that are trying to express itself.
And under your eye, letting go of the anger and resentment.
Letting go of the anger and the resentment.
And under your nose, the sadness and the grief.
The sadness and the grief.
And on your chin, the fear and the panic.
The fear and the panic.
And the collarbone, letting go of the guilt and the shame.
Letting go of the guilt and the shame.
And under your arm, the powerlessness and the out of control feelings.
The powerlessness and the out of control feelings.
And on the top of your head, and any other emotion I may be storing in my body.
And any other emotion that I may be storing in my body.
And over your eyebrow, I'm letting go of all beliefs around this pain.
I'm letting go of all beliefs around this pain.
And the side of your eye, I'm giving my body a chance to heal.
I'm giving my body a chance to heal.
And under your eye, I'm open to feeling relaxed in my body.
I'm open to feeling relaxed in my body.
And under your nose. And when I feel relaxed, I can begin to heal.
When I'm relaxed, I can begin to heal.
And on your chin, I see and feel the pain melting away.
I see and feel the pain melting away.
And the collarbone, it's getting softer and quieter.
It's getting softer and quieter.
And under your arm, surrounding my body with healthy and healing energy.
Surrounding my body with healthy and healing energy.
Awesome. Tap your wrists together and say peace.
Peace.
Good. Take a big deep breath in. Good.
So we got a couple of great questions in the chat box and a couple of things that I experienced as we navigated through this. First thing I noticed as we were doing it is the first thing that released was that floppy frustration I was feeling in my body before we got to anything inside of my head, which was really, really interesting. That I could just feel like, because I was now aware of both of those things, and my body relaxed before the pain in my head relaxed. The second thing that happened was, and we were just talking about, being gentle with the body and accepting it where it was. And I know that, like, it's not, but just being able to say that out loud and feel it, like the whole system went, okay, we're no longer fighting. Like it literally felt like it was no longer this tension that was battling inside of it, and just being present to it in that particular way. The third thing I heard at some point, where like, listen, I give myself permission to listen to this and that sort of stuff. And the body just went, drink more water. And it's like, yes, on break, we're refilling this. We're doing this more.
Yes, I love it.
So awesome. Okay, so a couple of things that came through the chat. First was someone did find the Body Keeps score, Basil von der Klock.
Yes, thank you.
So you can find that. And then this is a really, really great question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If the place that you are in pain is your head and it hurts to tap on your head, do you use alternate tapping points? So
absolutely.
Because this is something that's unique. Like it's not just that we're experiencing what is going on, but we're actually feeling it in the physical body, being in a circumstance to. So what are your thoughts on where do we tap when we're feeling physical pain as we're navigating this stuff?
Absolutely. And I love this question. It's a great question. So you don't have to tap on any point that doesn't feel good for you. Number one, there are so many answers to this question, but so number one, if your head hurts, don't tap on your head. You can tap on the collarbone point. You can tap under your arms. You can tap on points on your fingers. You can choose any of these places. The other thing I've got people who can't raise their hands, they can't raise to the top of their head.
Right.
And so, there are a lot of people that can't tap in particular places. It'll still work. I promise you it will still work. The other thing that you can do, which may sound a little funky, but you can close your eyes and imagine yourself tapping on these points. It's all about intention. Tapping is really big with intention. And so you can actually close your eyes, or if you want, you can actually even rub these points. You can just really gently just rub and breathe. You can, so that you're not actually tapping, you're still stimulating the points. If it feels too weird to just close your eyes and imagine it. But you can, tapping is so adaptable. And it just really works no matter how, even if you don't hit the right points or that sort of thing. But definitely if your head hurts, don't tap on it, just find a different way around it.
And you're telling that, I can remember a time I was visiting my sister when she was living in Portland, Oregon, and I was taking a red eye flight back, and we had spent the weekend on the beach, the beautiful Oregon coast, and apparently I got bitten by something while we were down there, and so I was having a really, really, really strong reaction inside of like the only way I could describe it is it felt like lava was inside of my
Oh
arms and
God, can't
inside of my
imagine.
body.
Yeah.
And I realize this as we are taxiing away, and I'm about to fly across country for 4.5 hours in the middle of this. So like I'm kind of stuck with this sort of thing. And so what I did was, because my arms were in so much pain, I literally just sat there and just imagined myself just moving from tapping point to tapping point to tapping point a couple of times, and the pain would reduce enough, and I would gently doze off to sleep for about 25 minutes, and I wake back up in pain, but again would just go through the exact same thing. The other
Wow.
thing I find is that, like, if I'm laying down, for whatever reason, tapping like this is fine, but if I'm laying down and I'm tapping this way, it's a different thing on the muscles. And sometimes when we are sick or we're in pain, sitting up is something that we can't do, and so now we're like holding our arm in a different way that we're not used to doing, and being able to do some imagination. And I love this touch and breathe, touch and breathe, touch and breathe is another great way to do that. So as we navigate this, and as you're thinking about pain, there's a difference between like the pain that I'm experiencing right here that is significantly less than it was, thank you very much, and someone who experiences acute pain. They have nerve damage, they have something that is long suffering that is inside of them. Is there a different approach we take for something that is chronic versus something that is because in the moment? Like your injured hand was something that was in the moment, it's not chronic. I'm not a person that suffers from chronic migraines. I might get one once every 3 or 4 months, and it can come and go very, very quickly. But like it's a completely different burden if every moment of your existence you're experiencing some sort of chronic pain. So when we're looking at it through the lens of something that's chronic, what are the things that we think about, and how do we approach that in a slightly different way?
Absolutely. So a lot of, I think, what we've been talking about is, acute pain, things that happen in the moment. Chronic pain, it's important there's just so many factors, and so I'll often say, well, number one, when did it start, right? Because for a lot of
Yep.
people, it goes back years and years, and a lot of it is systemic. And so we look at all of we look at to see, was there, more often than not, there is usually some sort of stressful situation that might have happened at the time when that chronic pain or, when it started. There's usually something that people can tie it to, not always, but very often.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at that. We look at what was happening at that time. That's definitely something we look at. Now, if someone's like, you know what, I don't know. I just woke up with it and it just never went away. Or,
Mm-hmm.
it started from this and then it moved to this and then to this. And so it's, and then it feels very sticky, right? It feels like there's so much. Where do I even start with this? And a lot of it is still going back to some of, let's start with the emotions around it. Let's start with, what are your feelings about having this pain for so long? What has it stopped you from doing? What has it gotten in the way of in terms of life? How has this affected you? How has it affected your family? And, how do you feel about the way that it's affected yourself and the way that it's affected your family? And there's so many different dialogues that people have in their head with chronic pain, right?
Yeah, and I think that's such a great question, because when we think about something that is physically painful, we're thinking about our experience inside of our body. And people who are experiencing chronic issues, oftentimes their lives have become very limited because of that particular thing. And I just love the fact that you're highlighting, like, what is this costing me? Not just what am I experiencing, but what is it costing me? Because it's possible that I can have two very different emotional responses to that. My body is letting me down emotional response that I shared a little bit earlier, but also the frustration, I'm not getting ahead, I'm missing opportunities, life is passing me by, the people I love get to do things, the people I love see me as a burden because they can't do the things that they love to do, because they're always like staying behind because I'm in pain in that sort of way. And so I think that's what's it costing me is such a beautiful, lovely question to start unpacking some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I just think it's it's such an important dialogue and conversation. I mean, we got the chills, like, as you were talking about it, because what I want people to really take away from this, from this conversation that we're having, is that it's never just about the pain, that the emotions and the thoughts that we think and the beliefs that we have about it are pretty much the underlying drivers around what's happening. And it's just so important to look at it, to look at both sides of that, because, even seeing, Western doctors, I mean, they're great. They're great. I mean, they're super helpful, but they don't always ask those questions. And
Right.
sometimes, again, coming back to being a detective of our own health and our own pain and that sort of thing, sometimes it just takes being a detective and actually listening. We can go on and say, oh, I have this pain and now I feel bad. I was talking to a client the other day who recently had an appendicitis, and she was feeling really guilty afterwards because she was feeling like a burden. Her family had to take care of her and her family, and she didn't want to go to the hospital, but they're like, you got to go to the hospital, And so she had feelings about that, about having to like get in an ambulance and go to the hospital. So she had feelings about that. And then she had feelings around, she felt like a burden that her family had to take care of her now that she's home. And she felt like, her medical team wasn't really listening to her. She couldn't take certain medications and all of that. And so she came home, and obviously she was doing much better. But she was still struggling on so many levels. So we had to address, feeling like a burden. And we had to address the fact that she was embarrassed she had to get into an ambulance. She was angry with some of her medical team because they were giving her medication that her body couldn't handle. So there were all these different elements that people don't necessarily think are still contributing to what's happening in your body. And it's just so, so, so important. Sometimes it's more important to address that than the actual pain in the body. So,
And so, to dovetail on that, this is a really interesting and fascinating question. If chronic pain is causing someone to feel suicidal, to have suicidal ideation, is it safe to tap on it?
Interesting. Great question. Number one, I think it's safe to tap on everything and anything. However, I will say that in that situation, reach out for help. That's not something you want to tackle on your own, right? Because especially if there's some trauma there and that sort of thing, then you don't want to keep re-traumatizing yourself by tapping on yourself. And so it's really important to reach out to help from a tapping practitioner. It is safe to tap. I mean, I've never seen or heard any situation in which it was not safe to tap. Now, sometimes we tap and it brings up emotions and it feels uncomfortable in the moment, but we know that we can tap and, help people to reduce that considerably. So yes, tapping is definitely safe. There's no question. But again, it's working with someone who knows how to be a detective and sort of navigate through it. And, talking about tapping on all the things we're talking about here, which is the underlying emotional component and looking at what's the underlying cause of it.
And I think something that like, it's really easy for us once we've engaged with tapping and how quickly tapping moves in comparison to other things, that it's really easy for us to want to be able to clear things really, really quickly. And for me, like, if something takes 3 sessions with tapping, it's typically taking significantly less time than another transformational method. And so, like, even though 3 sessions feels like it's a long time, it's not compared to other things. And so for me, I'm always in a circumstance where I am constantly erring on the side of caution. And so when we bump into a big issue like this, like you said, we can do this in a safe way. And the moment I feel like I am out of my depth in dealing with my own stuff, and I think of myself as an excellent practitioner, I'm immediately putting myself into a situation where I'm going to step into wanting to be helpful in that particular way and making sure that I'm getting help to take care of me so I'm not doing that alone.
1,000%. And thank you for also mentioning that, even though, we talk about, way back in the day, used to say, this, it's miraculous. It's, 5 minutes, it's gone. And, that is definitely, that can be the case. There's no question. But it takes time. And so, telling people to be patient with the pain. There are 1-minute wonders for sure. It definitely happens. You've seen them. I've seen them. We've all seen them. But that's the exception. I mean, it's the exception, not the rule, for sure. And, to be patient with the pain you're experiencing. It didn't take 5 minutes to get the pain, probably, especially chronic pain. And so sometimes it takes working through this stuff, it could take months, but again, it's going to go a lot more faster. It's going to go a lot faster than, probably some other, than just sitting with it and hoping it goes away for sure,
Yep.
or masking it, I'm all for medication if you need to take it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but, sometimes we mask it and then it just continues to get worse and we don't realize how much worse it's getting. And so, again, I always come back to it's a win-win. So if you can reduce the pain, it's awesome. But if you're also reducing the underlying emotional stuff and the stress that you've been experiencing, it's a win-win-win-win-win. Like you just can't lose there,
Awesome. Well, Julie, thank you very much for your time. I can't agree more with this particular thing. Yay, Julie, your YouTube channel is a lifesaver. If you haven't checked out Julie's content, she's a bunch of amazing, super videos. Julie, thanks for spending a little bit of your Saturday with us. God. We are so glad that you are here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go donate right now, actually. It
awesome.
was super easy. So I'm going to go donate. And thank you so much and enjoy the next 22 hours or whatever it is. I'm cheering you on.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Awesomeness.